Winter is over, and I need one last project to prepare for the bus season. A longboard should do the trick, or how about a drone? Maybe both. Welcome back to another edition of Wilson the VW Bus. I'm your host, Joe Masperry. In case you're just joining me for the first time, this is a podcast dedicated to the Volkswagen bus, specifically my 1967 VW camper bus named Wilson that I acquired almost 2 years ago and have been putting together and back on the road. In the previous episodes, I've talked about the rust repair, the upgrades to the braking system, and the restoration of the camper interior components, all of which will get us up to where we are today. By the way, I'm recording this podcast today from inside Wilson, so let's climb on in and get started. Alright, let me kick my shoes off. I'm stretched out here on the back seat, my feet on the jump seat. It's finally springtime here again, and the bus season is officially here. Now, I know that some Type 2 purists may be saying, well, drive your bus all year long. But I really don't have heat in the bus for winter driving, and I also don't have the heart to make Wilson suffer through salty New Jersey roads and get all rusty again. Unfortunately, the local water company has been working on the new water lines in our town, and it looks like they're out to create the world's worst potholes on a barely paved, rut-filled streets. It's a nightmare to drive around my neighborhood in any vehicle, let alone a lowered 56-year-old VW bus. But I had to get a few rides in, regardless. I also took the opportunity to get a new roof on the house and the garage, which is what I've been doing recently. And the garage was sporting the three old roofs, including the original one from 1947. So now Wilson has taken up his cozy space in the garage, which I have recently insulated, sheetrocked, installed new heat, and the new roof. I think Wilson's probably the most spoiled vehicle of all the cars that I've ever owned and have ever taken up a home in that garage. If you remember, I purchased a sewing machine and built myself the side tent awning for Wilson so that I could enjoy some summer camping this year. Well, I went out to the garage and took one last look at the tent, which, as you remember, is packaged up in a big beeswax-treated duffel bag, and throw that up on the roof rack. Man, this duffel bag is heavier than I remember. I went inside to grab my bathroom scale, and I weighed myself, and then I picked up the duffel bag with the awning and everything inside, and I weighed myself again. Although it only weighs about 42 pounds, it feels a lot heavier. I start to think about how I can lighten up the tent poles with some new tent poles. I made these out of 3/4-inch electrical steel conduit, and I looked at what possible replacements were available. It had to be strong and sturdy and also lightweight. My buddy John had some aluminum airlines that would work perfectly, but they would cost like $800 for a set to do the poles up in that material, so forget that. I also looked at some plastic PVC, but that was also pretty expensive too, and not as sturdy as I would like. The best solution I could think of was to swap out the steel poles with bamboo poles, but I haven't located the right size ones yet here locally. And a few people that I've talked to online say they may not be strong enough. But for now, I'll just heave this bag up onto the roof until I find the correct bamboo poles that I want. So I was cruising through Facebook Marketplace for some additional VW bus stuff one day, and I came across a Longboard skateboard for only $20. And I thought, Wilson needs another piece of decor to go with his style, and I need one last project to do before I start driving the bus regularly this spring. My wife and I headed out to Spring Lake, New Jersey to pick up the new Longboard. And if you haven't been there before, it's a beautiful, upscale, seaside town on the Jersey coast. We grabbed the board with the quick porch pickup and then took a nice long walk along the boardwalk and watched the waves crash into the surf. When I got home, I stripped the board down to all the bare components because someone had sprayed blue spray paint all over the board and the trucks, and then rebuilt the trucks and the bearings. Quick tip that I learned: if you install skateboard trucks backwards, the board will try to turn left when you lean right, and right when you try to turn left. It's like someone's trying to push you off it, and it's an absolutely lethal mistake. Learned that one the hard way. So I had this opportunity now to put some artistic creativity into the design of my new longboard art, but what should I do? I went to the local skate shop and a few websites, but nothing looked the part. I saw some vintage 60s longboards, but they were nice and mostly just made out of wood, or like a two-tone wood, maybe with a different color wood up the center. And the wood on my board was toast. It needed to be repainted. Maybe a dragon. Nah, that's going to be too difficult to do. I'm not that good of an artist. I got it. An octopus. I found an image that I liked, and I edited it on my PC until I got the right size and the shape that would fit the board. Then I used a projector to project it onto a piece of paper that I traced out the same size as the board. I took my design up the street to my friend Kathy, the artist, and asked for her opinion. And we tweaked it out a little bit before finalizing the sketch and then transferring it to the bottom of the skateboard. I wanted a cartoon-like design, so I painted the whole board with white primer and then a nice light blue. Then the octopus was painted in orange acrylic with a black outline that covers most of the board. A few coats of varathane sealer to protect the art, and that would do it. The board has a nice weathered look on the top, and although I bought new grip tape for it, I kind of like the look just as it is. Crusty, just like Wilson. So I rode it up the street to Kathy, the artist, and she and her husband, as well as my entire family, told me that I was too old to ride a skateboard unless I was willing to go to the hospital when I wiped out. Which to them I replied, I bungeed the skateboard onto the back of the roof rack for the time being. I now took one last look at the components that I still not have addressed for the Wilson the VW Bus Empire, my YouTube channel. I have it, and I have it created, but there's just no content on it, and I should probably explain. I could have recorded video of all the restoration work that I've done over the past 2 years, but I didn't. And some would say that I missed an opportunity for some really good content. The truth is that I spent a large part of my professional career creating and editing video, and sometimes this work feels like a real chore to me. I wanted to enjoy the moment of the work that I was doing, and at the time I didn't want to ruin my experiences restoring the bus by setting up the cameras and spending all the time editing the footage, for YouTube and Instagram, and also slowing down my progress, because I wanted to get this done. I mean, there's also a lot of good footage out there already on YouTube, and I honestly didn't think that I had anything unique or new to contribute with a rust panel restoration video. It's pretty much out there, been done already. So I added a few of the Instagram reels that I've taken to YouTube that I, use to create and promote the Wilson podcast every week. And those little shorts, I put those on the YouTube channel. And although I do have good cameras, I am missing one thing that I think would put the icing on the YouTube cake: a drone. I've been looking all winter and then decided on a relatively inexpensive DJI unit with the optional insurance. See, I've spent some time over the past few years flying RC helicopters and planes, and the one realization that I have was I'm not a very skilled pilot. I have spent so much time on the flight simulator, but that didn't help me at all. I crashed all of my planes and helicopters over and over and over again, and spent way too much money repairing and then repeating the same mistakes. I eventually gave them all away in frustration to my friends. I had a really nice P-51 Mustang, which I loved, but I wrecked that thing. I just could not get it to go where I wanted to, or I'd end up putting on the roof of some school. I have the flight basics covered, and now the technology has come a long way in the past few years with flight stabilization and return to home features, not to mention the replacement insurance that's available. So like I said, I purchased this DJI Mini SE, which is below the legal weight limit requiring an FAA license to fly, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles like 4K and obstacle avoidance of the higher end models. It looks like it'll work pretty good for me. The first time I set out to take out some footage was the other morning, when I got up early as usual and then drove Wilson over to the local park to get a few shots as the sun rose and the lighting was real good. I drove to the lower parking lot that is usually empty and parked there. I put Wilson right in the middle of the road so that the background was aesthetically pleasing. I hadn't taken more than 10 steps away from Wilson to take my first shot when a patrol car pulled up behind me and the police officer got out. I told him I was just setting up for a picture and that I would move the bus, but he was like, "Oh, no, that's okay. I saw you pull in. I just wanted to check it out." Officer Mike and I dove into 45 minutes of good old car guys talking about our favorite rides, and we talked about Wilson and talked about Mike's old Fox body Mustang. No sooner did he leave than the park cleanup crew came by and asked if I needed any help and took some photographs of their own. I finally got down and set up the drone and shot it up in the air to grab some footage, and then the local early morning walkers started to file in with lots of inquiring questions and nice comments. It seems like the hardest part of me trying to get some solo footage of Wilson with the drone that day was getting some uninterrupted time with just me and Wilson. I was only able to get less than a minute of video to post on YouTube and Instagram so far. Not a very productive start to my YouTube channel, but I will work on it, I promise. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for me here today on Wilson the VW bus, and to be honest, that brings us up to the present time. I have some swap meets and shows coming up, and I'll fill you in on those exploits in the next few episodes. I'll talk to you then.